Hi everyone, this is Bonnie McBain speaking on behalf of the other co-authors of this presentation, Dawn Bennett and Liam Phelan. In this presentation, we'll be sharing some of the insights from our pilot evaluation of a new core course on building employability in the Bachelor of Science at the University of Newcastle. The growing demand for science graduates is in part explained by the retirement of STEM staff in the workforce, but we have decreasing engagement of school students with science and maths and declining performance in science literacy compared to other nations. This means that the preparedness of students starting science degrees as we have designed them previously is low, and science degrees are needing to cater for a wider diversity of student capabilities. The skills expectations of graduates from BScs are vast. There are technical, disciplinary, transferable skills. However, 30% of science graduates never work in a science field. 8 years after graduation, only 50% of them are working in science and technology related jobs, and the remaining 50% in managerial or other professional work outside of science. Australia's top CEOs are more likely to have a science degree than one in commerce, and one in Fortune 100 CEOs are as likely to hold a BA or a BSc as they are to have a business degree. So how do we prepare our science students for this broad workforce eventuality? Employers outside the science disciplines seek science graduates for their scientific thinking. So, for example, the ability to undertake evidence-based inquiry, which supports innovation, active learning, critical thinking, complex problem solving, and creative problem solving. However, there are many skill sets that employers lack in new graduates from science degrees nationally. And this is a short list that we found from the top 12 in our literature review. There are three possible reasons for these skill gaps. So first of all, graduates may not be able to recognise the skills that are important for employers. They may not recognise those skills within themselves, or they may not be able to communicate those skills clearly enough. To give you a bit of context, we redesigned our Bachelor of Science starting in 2017, predominantly because of the rapidly changing landscape for science teaching and also the science employment landscape. We had a detailed 8-stage collaborative process involving teaching staff, industry, transferable skills experts, teaching staff from other faculties, students, professional and technical staff. The revision resulted in the mandate for 6 new core courses. So these 6 new core courses do the heavy lifting, so to speak, for teaching transferable skills and the skills students need to address complex issues of our time, facing both scientists and in partnership with other disciplines. In the first year, the curriculum supports a transition to university learning and the development of university academic success skills. In the second year, there's a transition into internal university focus and into the future employment and careers focus through internal and practice will opportunities. And in the third year, the shift in focus then goes to the workforce lens, where students become fully engaged in complex problem solving with real-world industry relevance. The course we wanted to talk to you about today was a second-year course. It's called Sky 2001 Professional Employment Skills. The course is offered in blended mode to ensure that information transfer occurs in the online environment through active learning, and the interactive workshops then embed the online content into practical individualised resources and insights through participatory learning. The aims of this course were to articulate to students what the current science workforce landscape looks like and how best to prepare for that landscape by increasing their own employability. You can see that we've got a good gender balance in our student cohort. We also have a significant amount of students with a disability, but very few from an international or Indigenous background. The majority of our students are from a median socioeconomic background, and most of them are under 20. Embedded into the design of the course are many resources from the Developing Employability Thinking website. This project was developed by our co-author Dawn Bennett from Curtin University. Through this website, students are able to develop their individualised employability profile by undertaking an assessment in the form of an online survey. Through this, they can identify their employability thinking strengths and gaps. The employability assessment measures 6 literacies that contribute to employability, developed as a result of a significant review of the literature. Employability is defined as the ability to find, create, and sustain meaningful work across the career lifespan in multiple settings. Students can also use the resources provided on the website to bridge their employability gaps, some of which are STEM specific. The course ran for the first time this year as a pilot in summer and then at full scale in semester 1. And in this pilot evaluation, we've looked at a number of different data sources. First of all, the UON student demographic data, the course outcomes data. We did some qualitative analysis of the reflective journal summary assessment task, and we also engaged with student feedback on the course. There were 129 active enrolments in the course. 41 students dropped the course before the census date, but only 5 students dropped the course after census. As you can see from the data collected by the university, 75% of students said that they were affected by at least one learning impact, which challenged their ability to finish the course. It's gratifying to note that the low withdrawal rate after census, especially given the number of students with these challenges. The analysis of the pass and withdrawal rates across different student demographics indicate that generally there were high pass rates and low withdrawals. This indicates that the design of the curriculum aligns well with the needs of the majority of students. Slightly lower pass rates were exhibited by males and low SES students, and slightly higher withdrawals were evident in high SES students. Although the differences aren't really big, it does warrant some attention to make adjustments to how the course is run subsequently next year in 2021. We undertook a qualitative analysis of 30 student reflective journal summaries and the student feedback on the course to identify evidence of students using the course to increase 5 of the 6 employability literacies. In terms of basic literacies, students could successfully identify which skills were sought in the workforce and identify the skills that they already had. Some were surprised that transferable skills were so highly valued by employers and that they could legitimately gain these skills beyond their study from, for example, parenting, sport, extracurricular activity, and part-time work. This made many students realise that they were already highly employable. Students also realised that their science skills were relevant and sought after outside the science workforce. They used the activities in the course to identify skills gaps and sought to address those gaps by developing an action plan. They also used the employability survey to critically evaluate gaps. The student quote demonstrates that process really well. One student said, "I have been able to identify the skills that I've had previously that I had not considered an advantage to getting employed, and how I can work on myself to further gain even more skills to be utilised in my employability." The importance of networks became very clear to students. Some students were at first intimidated to find out that the majority of jobs were acquired through networks rather than job advertisements. However, reframing networks as being a conversation of mutual benefit rather than selling yourself reframed networking for many students, thus making the process more attractive, or at least less scary. Realising that they could network in multiple ways was helpful for students. And this student quote really demonstrates that. She says, "Already I have found that my LinkedIn profile is appearing in many more searches than it was before I prepared it for this assessment task. I went from appearing in 1 or 2 searches per week to appearing in 19 searches last week." Many parts of the course have also given students more confidence. So, for example, they were asked to continually practice their elevator pitch via multiple hurdle tasks, and this gave many students much more confidence in their ability to talk about themselves. And this growing confidence applied equally to other forms of communicating employability too. Several elements of time management were identified. Learning materials about developing good habits of work-life balance and practical methods of managing time were mentioned by many students. Several students noted that despite the benefits of employability, social media had the potential to drain time from their lives, and this quote demonstrates that well. While writing about this in my journal, I checked my phone's data and was shocked to find 3 hours per day is spent on my phone. I decided to reduce my time spent per day on my phone, allowing me to spend more time on important things like assignments, ultimately making me more employable. When we investigate evidence for personal and critical literacies, it was clear from the student comments that they understood the relevance of the course content and used it practically to implement ways to improve their employability. More specifically, students were able to articulate what employability means, what employers sought, and they could identify how they were already employable in many ways, and they learned how to articulate attributes which made them employable and differentiate these skills and attributes from other graduates. Importantly, students recognised that they were at the beginning of their employability learning journey and that the timing of the course in second year allowed significant time for them to continue implementing the theory into practice. Many emotional literacies were identified. Managing emotions, particularly managing stress, is something that resonated for many students. They identified having a work-life balance as being an important contributor to minimising stress. Students also identified tactics that they could use to minimise stress associated with their study, such as breaking down big tasks into smaller parts, connecting with other students having similar challenges to their own, focusing less on deadlines, learning from past mistakes, and becoming more adaptable. Students also highlighted having an awareness of others as an important capability that increased their ability to be successful in the workforce. In particular, having an awareness of others' feelings and empathy towards their perspectives were important for working as part of a team. They felt that this element of emotional intelligence would allow them to react more appropriately. Also, asking and listening to others were understood to be key approaches to allow them to do that. Students had various ways of recognising the importance of values and interests in driving career direction, and that's an important part of occupational literacies. Many identified the need to align their own values with the type of work they aspired to do. They understood that it was not possible or wise to identify one particular career aspiration, but instead to find a career purpose which would remain constant despite the uncertain nature of the science work landscape. Explicit course material on the value of working with failure and disappointment resonated with many students. Many students connected particularly with workshop activities that introduced the possibility of past failure as having the potential to open up new opportunities. Learning from failure and failing mindfully, as well as the survivability from failure, were often highlighted as important for long-term employability by students. Having resilience to failure was an attribute of particular relevance to addressing the high levels of uncertainty in the careers landscape. And similarly, the importance of anticipating failure and exploring alternatives was a response to this uncertainty that many students highlighted. So that wraps up the findings from our pilot evaluation of our second year professional employment skills course. If you would like to find out more about the Developing Employability website, then you'll find the link to the student and the educator sites here on this last slide. And we'd also love to hear from you and have supplied contact details of the authors here too. So thanks for having us and hope to talk more in the online session.